October 15th is Pregnancy and Infant Loss Awareness Day, and it's a Remembrance Day. It's a Remembrance Day for all of those families, not just here in Australia, but around the world, who have faced the heartbreak of their baby not coming home with them, their baby not being born, their baby being stillborn, or even passing away just days after being born. It is one of those heartbreaking, sad realities of life that many thousands of families every single year are having to endure that heartbreak. When a woman and a man, a family, whatever the dynamic is, whatever the combination is, when someone decides that they want to have a baby, even if that decision was like very spontaneous and it just happened, you start to plan your life. You start to plan out your future with this child. And you think about what kind of person they're going to be. You think about what you're going to do as a family, all of the fun things that you're going to do, all the things that you'd love to teach them, the places that you want to take them. There's so much that goes on in your mind when you are preparing to bring a baby into the world. And then we get the heartbreaking news that that baby's not coming into the world. And I wanted to share my story. My story is, I think, different for a few reasons, and I'm going to get into those reasons. And you watching this, I want my story to be one of hope and to maybe just give you a little bit of a different way of thinking about what's going on for you and with you. And I know that might sound a little maybe heartless, potentially, especially when you're in the beginning of this grief, in the beginning of this heartache. Because when you're in the beginning of it, nothing's going to really help to bring you out of that, because you need to be in that. It's okay to be in that. It's okay to not think too far into the future about where you're going to be next, because the only thing that you can think about in those days and those weeks and those very early months of your baby not coming home with you, the only thing you think about is that baby not being there with you, and you can't understand why it has happened. There's no good reason why it could ever happen. And it doesn't matter what anyone tells you, and people tell you a lot of things. They tell you it happened for a reason, and that God needed their baby back, or you'll have another one, don't worry, you can always try again. And there's so much crap that people tell you. And hopefully it's said with very good intentions, because what do you say to a mum and a dad when they've just lost their baby? There's nothing you can say that's going to make it feel better. So people just say what they think is something at least a little bit heartfelt and hopeful, because people think about the hope for the future. But as a mother and as a father, when you're in that space of grief and like total heartache, and your heart feels like it's been ripped out of your chest, and you have no idea if it's ever going to heal, nothing that anyone says will ever take that pain away. So my story, as I said, it's a little bit different in that 8 years later, I have much more of an understanding of what happened to me, and I guess why it happened to me and for me. Because I was not in a good place as a person, as a woman, when I was pregnant with Harry. I was full of hate for myself and my life, just literally everything about who I was. And I was married, well, I still am. I was married to an amazing man, and we decided to have a child, and we fell pregnant very easily. It was a somewhat good pregnancy. I was quite sick at the beginning, and it was all right. The sickness didn't last. I think I felt okay after about 4 months, but then by the end, I was just very heavy. My legs were swollen, and I couldn't walk very well. And I think I finished work early because I just couldn't go on anymore. So it was a pretty good pregnancy. I had no real issue with it, really. I didn't have any worries. I didn't have any concerns. We did all of the birthing classes, and it's not something that they touch on, and it's not something that they talk about, which I think that they should, even though being pregnant, you don't want to know about what might happen. And, I was taught to, monitor your baby's moves and just see how things are going, especially towards the end. And if anything changes, go to your doctor to see what could be going on, if anything has changed, if anything feels different. But I didn't feel different. I didn't feel strange in any way. I didn't think that anything was going on. But when I look back at that time, like Harry, I was pregnant, I think I was 41 and a half weeks or something when he was born. And it was just that my husband, he was sitting really high, and he hadn't moved down. As far as I was aware, he should have moved down, but everything felt fine. He wasn't much of a mover, so I honestly didn't even, and this hurts me to say, that I didn't even notice that he'd stopped moving. There was just no concern in my head whatsoever that this baby was not coming to us. So I didn't think about any of that. I didn't realize that that was even an option for my pregnancy, because I knew that we were going to have a baby. Like, I just felt it, and I'd felt it for years, even before we'd got pregnant. So to me, it was just going to happen. So for anything else to even be contemplated, well, it wasn't in my mind. But it was my husband who had lost a baby before in almost identical circumstances with his previous partner. He was the one that said, go and get a checkup because nothing's really happening. Just go and see what's going on. And so I did. I went to the doctors. My usual doctor was away. And he did his checkup and put his stethoscope on my stomach to listen to the heartbeat, and he couldn't find it. And that was no words, really. I kind of just, I don't know, I think I just went into shock a little bit. He recommended we go to the hospital. So I called my husband straight away, and he met me at home, and then we went up to the hospital. We went in for a checkup, got hooked up to all the machines. There was an amazing nurse next to me. Her name was Tracy. And yeah, we were told that there's no heartbeat. And I remember asking, but knowing full well what it meant, I asked, what does that mean? Like, I kind of felt like I was split in two. Like there was this, I don't even know. I just felt like I just became two people. And I think a part of me just retreated and just kind of left the building. How are you supposed to deal with that? How are you supposed to comprehend that your baby has died? You can't. You just can't. So we, just obviously completely heartbroken, the both of us. And we stayed in the hospital for a little bit, and we decided to go home, let people know, and then be induced in the morning and give birth. But which felt weird to me. Like I couldn't understand that my baby had died, but yet I now had to give birth to my baby. And at that point, we didn't know if we had a boy or a girl. We were waiting to the very end. So I was like, oh my God, I actually have to give birth now. I have to bring my dead baby into the world. Like, how do you do that? It's just, if you've been in it, you know that your mind just, it gets so logical, but so just removed at the same time. Like there's parts of you that just cease to function. You can't think. You don't know what to do. It's such a weird feeling. So we went home, and my beautiful husband made all the phone calls to people to let them know. And we just held each other that night. I don't even know if we slept or not. I'm not even sure. But it was not a great night, that's for sure. And wake up in the morning, must have had some sleep. And then you just remember all over again. For that split second, everything just feels like it was. And then you remember that it's not how it was. And we're due to go to the hospital. I think we're supposed to be up there at about 7 o'clock or something. 7 o'clock in the morning, I think it was. But it was about 5:30 or so I actually started to get cramps, but in my back, like really painful back. I was like, what is this? What is going on here? I had no idea. Honestly, I was quite naive, I guess, about the whole pregnancy and birth thing. As much as I did the classes, I think there's just some information that they just don't tell you. So we rang the hospital, let them know we were on our way. And as we were driving to the hospital, I was just like, the cramps were coming pretty quickly and pretty aggressively. Um, I didn't know what was going on. Like, I didn't know that you could get cramps in the back. I thought all your cramps would be more in the front. But I was, yeah, having lots of pain, like in my back. So we got to the hospital, and that beautiful nurse Tracy was there waiting for us, and she stayed with us literally all day. She was freaking amazing. So she had a look at what was going on, and she said that I was in labor, and I couldn't believe it. I could not believe that I was literally in labor. So I didn't need to be induced because I was already there. Yeah, so we just got ready for bringing our baby into the world in the weirdest, most fucked up way, really. So the labor was, it was kind of smooth, I guess, but I'd push and then he'd come back up, and I'd push and he'd come back up. So it was a little bit challenging in that respect. And obviously, knowing what the end result was, of course, it made it harder. But after, I think it was about 5 hours, at 2:20, 2:26 in the afternoon, Harry was born silently. There's a beautiful saying which I'd never heard before, but definitely know it now. He was born sleeping, and I like that. I like the sound of that. He was born sleeping, and we held him, and we hugged him, and just cried, of course. And my in-laws drove straight up from Sydney, and they made it. They got to see him. They got there not long after he was born, so they got to come in and hold him as well. So we had some family there. But like most things throughout my life, I used to call myself an emotional cripple. I could not feel anything. I could not show emotion. I felt a lot of stuff, but I was never able to really bring it out properly, except for the anger and the hate. That they were my go-to. So, I held him in my arms and I kind of just numbed out and went blank. And I remember the social worker coming in, and she told me it's okay to cry. I hate crying. But I couldn't feel anything. The whole experience was just out of this world. Like, it's not what any of us want, is it? When we have a baby, when we decide to get pregnant, having a baby that dies too soon inside of us. or is born sleeping, or the baby is alive when it's born, for other reasons does not get to stay with the family that it came into. It is honestly the most bizarre, is not even the right word, but it is so bizarre. Like when you think about all of it, the plans that you make, the future that you think about, and the love that you have for this child that doesn't get to come home. And I sat in his room for months, just sitting in the rocking chair and looking at his empty cot and his empty stroller that I never got to push him around in, and the toys, and the beautiful room that we set up for him, that cot that my husband painted in beautiful rainbow colors. He didn't get to sleep in it, didn't get to wear any of the clothes that I bought. And you just sit and you wonder and you think, why is this happening? What did I do? Could I have been better? Could I have done better? Why didn't I know? Why didn't I notice? Like, your mind just goes absolutely stir crazy thinking of all of these things. And we decided to get an autopsy done so that we could at least try and understand a little bit about why he didn't get to stay with us. But the results came back inconclusive. There was no medical reason why he passed away. And this is where my story changes a little bit and it becomes different to maybe what your story is, in that, as I said, now 8 years later, I understand what that was for me. And whether it was just for me, I don't know. My husband going to have his own reasons as to why it happened for him. But for me, Harry came to me to teach me how to be a better mother. Because I don't know what kind of mother I would have been to him. And that's hard to say, because I was a good person, but I didn't know how to be a good person. As I said at the beginning, I hated myself so much that I allowed anger to fuel my life. So as much as I didn't want to be that kind of mother, because that was the mother I had, she did her absolute best with what she had. She could have done a million times better. She could have done a million times worse. But I had that mother and I didn't want to be that mother. I didn't know how to be any different though. Didn't know how to be better. I didn't know how to be not just the mother, but the woman that I wanted to be, the woman I needed me to be, the woman that I actually was, but wasn't allowing me to be. All of that weighed on my mind. And of course, I hated myself because I couldn't be any of that. Life, as they say, life works in mysterious ways. And I think for me, I needed something big. I just had a thought, I just had a memory about how I used to want something major to happen to me to get me to change. I never thought it would be that, but that's really weird. I've never ever thought of that before, but that was something when I was younger, in my more moody, dramatic days. I wanted something major to happen that would just fucking knock the shit out of me and give me bloody kick up the ass I needed to change. That was it. That was what I needed. So after Harry was born, and many, many days just laying there, pondering, wondering, confused, lonely, upset, heartbroken, trying again, kind of desperately trying, just knowing that, like, I still knew that we were going to have a child. I just knew it. And as I said, I'd felt it for years. And I specifically remember this day. We were at a friend's over in Fremantle in Western Australia for a friend's wedding. And we were just sitting at this pub and just all sitting around drinking. There was quite a few of us and just, having a nice time. And one of my friend's friends, she had a little girl, and I just looked at this little girl and just knew in an instant that we were going to have a little girl. Like, I just knew it. It was not one of those, oh yeah, I'd really love to have a little girl. No, it was you are going to have a girl. And I held on to that feeling for so long. So of course, when Harry passed and he came out and he was a boy, I was actually quite surprised that he was a boy, because I was so convinced we were having a girl. I wasn't disappointed that he was a boy at all. There was too many other things to be concerned about and heartbroken about, that he was a boy. So that feeling it stayed with me, and we kept trying and we kept trying and we kept trying, and we had a few complications which I'm not going to go into. And we were getting tested, and we were literally on the verge of starting IVF. And then I remember we'd gone to this appointment, and my period was late, but I wasn't getting my hopes up. I just thought, with everything going on, maybe it was just a few days late. But then after about 5 days, I'm like, I didn't really want to do a test because I didn't want to be disappointed. But I bought a test. I come home, did the test, and it said that we were pregnant. And it was that result was filled with so many different feelings. And there was, obviously, we were happy, but we were scared as well. What if it happened again? So to confirm that we were pregnant again, we went to the doctor the next day, and we got the result, and it came back, yes, we were definitely pregnant. But the really beautiful thing, I think, is that we found out we were pregnant exactly 12 months to the day that we found out Harry had passed. So it was the day before his birthday. And I think he had something to do with that for sure. He definitely had a hand in bringing his brother or sister into the world. So the next 9 months, wow, I definitely felt every niggle, every movement. I was just constantly on guard. And it was not a great pregnancy. It was a little bit worse than when I was pregnant with Harry. And we had one major scare. One major scare. I was at work and I hadn't felt the baby move in quite a while, and I was jumping up and down and I was doing all sorts of things and just not moving at all. So I left work straight away, went home, waited for my husband to get home, and we went straight up to the hospital. And such relief when they hooked us up and there was a heartbeat. I guess the baby was just having a massive nap, sleeping through, just like a father, sleeping through. I'm going to cut that bit out. So, needless to say, that was the biggest relief I think I've ever felt in my entire life. So, the next few months, I think I was about 6 months pregnant then. So, I was quite big. So, the next couple of months were good. Just dragging my weight around. I felt very heavy again, legs swollen, a little bit sick here and there. So it wasn't too bad considering, really. It's just grateful that everything was going okay. And then at time was it? I think it was about 5 o'clock in the morning. I remember I'd got up, I'd gone to the bathroom, hopped back in bed. I don't know if I'd fallen asleep or not. It kind of feels like there was a couple of hours there, so maybe I did fall asleep or I was just staying awake. I don't know, but I'd been to the toilet, so I knew that I didn't need to go, but just all of a sudden, I felt my waters break. I was like, did I just wet myself? Like, what happened there? So I got up, went back to the bathroom, knew that it was my waters. Called my husband. I just called out to my husband just in the bed there and told him that my waters had broken. So we called the hospital. And yeah, basically went up straight away because we were high risk. So we went up and really just waited and waited and waited, and nothing was happening. Nothing was, it was just that was that, and then nothing. It's just back to normal, I guess. So they gave us the choice of going home and waiting or be induced and getting things moving. So we decided to be induced. And so I think I was induced at about 5:30, 4:30, 5:30. The clock stopped in the maternity room that I was in. So I didn't really know what the time was, but I think it was about 4:30. 4:30. Let's say 4:30. And then, yeah, I think by 5:30, that's when my contractions started. And then they started getting worse and worse, of course, as they do. And yeah, our beautiful girl was born only 5 hours later. It was, again, and it was a quick birth, but it was a much smoother birth, I guess. Like, she was ready to come. Yes, our beautiful girl, she was ready to come out. She wanted to be out. She wanted to meet us. She wanted to be with us. She just came out so easily. And after my birth with Harry, it was another relief that it was quite so easy. And, they put her straight into my arms, and I held her, and she actually smiled at me. It wasn't wind, it wasn't all those usual things that people say, oh, I can't be smiling, she's too young. She smiled at me, and she's been smiling at me ever since, 7 years later. So the last 7 years have been challenging, of course they have. Motherhood is challenging. It took about 3 weeks to get her to feed properly. But once she did, oh my God, she was off. And she did not get off. She stayed on there for quite a while. She loved her boobies. But even more than that, it was just after she was born and she was in my arms and I was looking down at her, I just knew that I could not be that mother. I could not be the mother that I had, who was just angry with us all the time, who, as I said, she did her best, but we needed more than that. We needed someone who truly cared about what we were going through, who didn't dismiss our feelings, and who showed. I wanted to be the mother who showed her daughter love. I didn't know how to love, didn't know how to love myself, didn't know how to love anyone else. But as soon as she was put in my arms, something came back. Just a little bit of something. There was a fire. I think it just reignited inside of me. And for the last 7 years, I have been working hard every day to not just be a better mother, but to be a better woman, to be a better person, so that I can bring love into her life like I never had it, and to bring it into my life like I never had it. I've had to raise love within myself and then raise love within her. She's already got that love. She doesn't need to raise it because she already has it. So I want her to keep it. I want her to keep that love and that joy and that amazing spirit inside of her. I had that, and it got knocked out of me. It got dismissed and forgotten about. So Harry coming into our life was not in vain. It was not for no reason. And I always believed that everything happened for a reason. But then when Harry passed, I couldn't understand what the reason was. And I hated that saying, everything happens for a reason. What the fuck was this reason? Why the hell was my son taken away? Why was my son not allowed to stay with us? There could not possibly be any reason for that, ever. And when you're in the midst of that grief and that pain, no one can ever give you a reason. There's not going to be one reason that you believe as to why your child could not stay with you. And this is where I say my story is that bit different, because I now know that there was a reason. And even though I still kind of hate saying that, it feels a little icky when you have a child that you wanted so desperately, so badly, that you loved and planned a life around. and then they're not there. So to say that there's a reason why they're not there, it feels shit. But for me, I know that there was a reason. Harry was never meant to stay. He was never meant to stay. He was a beautiful gift that has helped me to become the woman that I am today, the mother that I am today. And I don't get everything right. I still have days where I just feel like I'm going crazy and I'm overwhelmed and it feels too much. But I will always have the love for myself and the love for my daughter and my family that drives me to do better, the best that I know how in the moment. And then the next moment I can do even better. Because my daughter deserves to have a mother who was not treated the way that I was treated. I don't want her to grow up hating who she was or hating who she is and hating me. I don't hate my mother anymore, but I did for a very long time. And that's a whole other video because she's dying right now. And there's a lot of feeling about that. I couldn't have my daughter feel about me the way I felt about my mum and about myself. And to live a life where she's so afraid of being herself that she just isn't anybody. And that's what I was. I wasn't anybody. I was this angry, hurt, hate-filled woman. And that could not raise a mother. That could not raise a child. Not in the way that she needed. So when they put her in my arms and she smiled at me, and I made that promise, I have held on to that promise every single day. As I said, I'm not perfect, but I am so aware of how my behavior can affect her and how it affects me. So I am choosing to behave in a way that shows her how amazing she is and shows me how amazing I am. So Harry coming into this world is huge. It's more than just him teaching me this teeny tiny little lesson. It's a massive lesson. There is so much involved in that lesson. For me, for my daughter, for our life, for our family. And Harry's life has so much more meaning than him being our son that passed away. As I said, he wasn't meant to stay. You can't understand that at the time. You can't understand why they can't stay. Because you just really, really want them to stay. I just needed to share that story. That story has been in me for 8 years. Longer than that, I guess. 8.5 years. It's nearly 9 years since he was born. this story, I wanted to tell it for such a long time, but I needed to understand it more myself. I'm not sure how it will help you. I hope it gives you just a little bit of hope for yourself and what you're going through. I don't know your story. I don't know if you've had multiple miscarriages or maybe even a few babies that have been born sleeping. Because unfortunately, those stories are real. Many families, many families have had multiple babies who were not able to go home with them. So I guess if I had to have one wish for this video, it would be for you to know that your baby was a beautiful gift in a way that maybe you have never imagined or even thought about. And as heartbreaking as it is to even think about the loss of your baby and what it not only means in the respect that they're not here with you anymore, but the why of why they're not here with you anymore. There might be something there. Look a little bit deeper inside yourself and see what message maybe they're trying to send to you. Harry's message was, you can be a better mother. He taught me that. Without him, I don't know if I would have got there. Hopefully I would have. Hopefully it would have happened. It might not have happened so quick, and it might have happened in a different way. We celebrate his birthday every year. We think about him all the time. He is a part of our family. I have his tattoo on my arm, which I got not that long after he was born. He is everywhere. We have pictures of him around our house. He is a part of our family. Always will be. My daughter, she talks about him. She knows about him. She knows most of the story. She's only 7, so there's still parts of it that she's a little too young to understand yet. But she talks about him like he's her brother. She talks about her other brother in heaven, who my husband, that was his first child, who didn't get to come home either. They're her brothers. And she talks about our 2 dogs that we sadly had to put down when she was only a couple of years old. They're her brothers in heaven as well. She says she has 5 brothers. Actually, she has 6 now. She counts her dogs. She has 1 older brother as well. And it's wonderful to hear her talk about him like that. She has no, what's the word? I don't want to say shame, but you know, sometimes it's a taboo to talk about it because it makes other people uncomfortable. Tough. If it makes them uncomfortable, then that's on them. But as mothers, fathers, and families who have had to go through one of the biggest heartbreaks of their life, we should be allowed to talk about it. We are allowed to talk about it. And October 15th is the day where we get to remember our babies. So light a candle for your beautiful baby, for your beautiful babies, for all of the babies around the world who didn't get to go home with their parents. We remember you, we love you, and we thank you for the beautiful gift that you are. And I'd love to hear what your story is. Either share it with me personally, privately. My email will be below, or share it in the comments. It's not something to hide away. The whole world won't understand. The whole world won't even think about it. But there are, sadly, lots of families that do think about it and understand, and they've been through it. And we are here all together to remember our beautiful babies on this day. So thank you for listening to my story. I really would love to hear your story as well. Even if you don't want to share your whole story or even a little bit of your story, put your baby's name in the comments below and let's remember them together. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. And thank you to our beautiful babies for the beautiful gift that they are.